Brand new season, brand new dawn for Box. And it's lights out and away we go.
Simply lovely. I was really enjoying that last day.
Welcome back to Box. And now it is no doubt that at times in the 2023 Formula One season, I was not on it. I slacked a little bit. And so for that reason, whether it be illness, traveling, all of the fun things, I slacked a little bit and I didn't do every episode like I said I would. So for that reason, we are going back and we are going to relive some of the races, in fact, all of the races that I neglected to make an episode on. So let's get into it. This week, we are going to Monte Carlo. We are talking the Grand Prix likened to the diamond of the season, the crown jewel of motorsport. And it certainly did not disappoint. Nail-biting qualifying, chaotic rain-riddled race. There was certainly a lot to discuss about Monaco, and I forgot to. Well, in my defense, I had pneumonia, but let's get into it. Floor talk. I think it's safe to say that 9 out of 10 teams began to upgrade their floors in the months after Monaco to resemble the unique and highly efficient floor that was the Red Bull. With teams being treated to multiple camera angles and footage of the underside of the Red Bull, thanks to Sergio Perez's crash early on in Q1 on Saturday afternoon. I mean, thankfully, Checo came away unscathed, and the team certainly would not have been impressed with one of the key elements of success being broadcast on international television for everyone to see, especially their competitors. But, thankfully for Red Bull, this wasn't the only flaw shown to the world this weekend, with Lewis Hamilton putting his Mercedes in the wall in free practice 3, resulting in it being hoisted off the track in a very similar fashion. And let's be honest, if the midfield and below are going to be taking ideas from either of these to implement later in the season to improve their car and to make any steps forward for the 2023 season or even into 2024, I think we know who's they're going to take. So I would not be surprised if we see in 2024 a lot of very similar flooring. I mean, I hope we don't see them, but to the Red Bull. If it's a choice between Mercedes and Red Bull, it doesn't really take an engineer to figure out which one everyone's going to try and replicate, especially considering they went on to win their third World Drivers' Championship. Well, Max did, and they won the Constructors again. Now, change of pace. Moving away from floor talk. Where art thou, safety car? If there's one thing you can pretty much guarantee in Monaco, is that there will be cars in the wall. And a safety car is only a matter of time. It's not a question of if, but when. But this season, the safety car and Bert Mylander could have just taken a holiday. They didn't need to be there, and its services were not required. But that's not to say no one DNF'd. It's just no one ended up in the wall. I mean, and no one ended up in the wall. Because both of those things certainly did. I mean, both Lance Stroll and Kevin Magnussen had horrible races, with both sustaining damages very early on, and exacerbating it as the race progressed, and the rain arrived. Lance managed to place his Aston Martin in a runoff where the marshals could clear the wreckage, and Kevin managed to get his back to the garage, so the services of the safety car were just not needed, which is a miracle considering the chaos that ensued post-rain deluge. So it's just like, is it really Monaco? Is it really a successful Monaco Grand Prix if there's no safety car? I mean, I'm glad everyone's okay, but Ferrari. Really, Ferrari? Again? Honestly, for one of the oldest teams in the history of Formula One, you'd think that they'd know how to navigate a wet weather strategy. It's not hard. I figured it out at home. But no, apparently they cannot, because once again, their dodgy strategy calls left them caught out by the rain, and their drivers suffered the consequences and went tumbling down the order to P6 and P8, with Carlos being involved in multiple incidents. I have no words. I mean, was either driver happy with how the day played out? No, absolutely not. With Carlos expressing his disdain at the pit wall strategy over the team radio for all to hear. I mean, typically you'd save it for the strategy debrief afterwards, but man just couldn't. He was so mad, and I don't blame him. But it didn't end there. Ferrari keep basing their strategy decisions on what others around them are doing, and what others around them may or may not do, and not what's actually best for them and their drivers, and what's actually going to help them in their race. And this all came to a head when they boxed Carlos for mediums, citing that they were trying to hold off Hamilton and Mercedes, but it ended up that the Alpine and the team were the team that they needed to be worrying about, given that they came out behind them and ultimately they lost a podium position because of it. I mean, that and the horrible rain and the wet weather strategy. So, Ferrari, may I suggest that you stop trying to read the minds of the teams around you and that you focus on your own drivers, because they're the ones in your car. They're the ones racing for you, not everyone around you. I mean, the drivers themselves are clearly better strategists than what the pit wall has to offer. And the drivers are quite capable of knowing who it is that they're actually racing. I mean, they even said, I don't want to worry about Hamilton and Mercedes. Okay, my rant is over. Let's get into how every team performed this week. I mean, Max went on to claim his 4th win of the season, largely remaining out in front with clear running except for a few back markers, surprising no one. But he did have a slight run-in with the wall on lap 70, largely due to his need to see how far he could extend the gap out front, and apparently 24 seconds was definitely not enough for him. But he managed to keep going, and it was nothing serious and impacted his race in no way, shape or form. Checo's weekend could not have been worse though, thanks to his crash in qualifying. That saw him midway through the race, saw him start in 20th. He then ended up pitting on lap 1 of the race for hard tyres, and about midway through the race made an opportunistic move to claim the P15 spot from Lance Stroll, illegally cutting the corner. He didn't give the place back, and then pulled a George Russell saying that he was the victim, and that Stroll pushed him off. But, just like everyone else, karma was at, and that Stroll pushed him off. But karma was working overtime in Monaco. He was on holiday in Monte Carlo, thought he'd stop by the Grand Prix. And on that fateful day, moments later, he rear-ended the Haas of Kevin Magnussen, damaging his front wing and forcing him into the pits again. So it's safe to say that Maxi Taxi really was carrying the whole team this weekend. Georgie boy was fortunate to avoid a penalty after failing to position the car correctly in the grid, despite being blatantly too far forward. He was, however, given a penalty later in the race for an unsafe re-entry when he rejoined the track after running off in the rain and causing a collision with Perez. So, George qualified 6th, narrowly missing out on a podium position, finishing the race in 4th, while Lewis started 8th and finished in 5th. So overall, a great performance from the Brackley-based team, and despite Lewis's earlier crash in the weekend, they were able to bring home a decent points haul. And they both did something that's very hard to do, in that they managed to make overtakes on the streets of Monaco. So props to them. On to Aston Martin. Alonso took the fight to Max for P1 after qualifying P2, starting next to him on the front row of the grid. But unfortunately, the car did not have the legs, despite his best efforts. P2 is where he remained. His teammate was definitely not so lucky. After starting the race in P14, he ended up crashing out of the race when the rain descended, but not before he put his car in the wall, and also into the Williams of Logan Sargent on lap 1. I will not forget seeing Lance Stroll take the hairpin on the wall. So that was fun. Ferrari. Carlos collided with Esteban Ocon after trying to make an opportunistic move in the swimming pool complex, breaking his front wing, and then the team decided to risk disqualification by allowing him to drive an unsafe vehicle, given the concerns about the stability and the integrity of the Ferrari front wing. But he did manage to avoid receiving any penalty for causing a collision. Another great and consistent decision by race control and the FIA stewards. Charles' woes and the Monaco curse kicked in again in qualifying, seeing him receive a 3-place grid penalty for impeding little Lando Norris in the tunnel, breaking the gentleman's agreement to not drive in the middle of the track, meaning that his P3 quali performance saw him start the race in 6th, and that's exactly where he finished. Carlos managed to qualify in 5th, seemingly giving him a great chance for a minor podium position. However, everything, and literally everything, was against him, including his own team, and he came home to finish in P8. Overall, it wasn't a terrible drive for both. It wasn't terrible for both drivers, and they managed to score some valuable points. But there was potential for so much more from the Scuderia this weekend, and they just didn't. They do what they do best, and they screwed themselves over. Will they learn? Probably not. And they'll continue to question, why are we so bad? Why can't we win a championship? It's because of you, babes. You're the problem. McLaren. A double points finish for the boys in Papaya. Lando came home in P9, and OP came home in P10. It was a decent qualifying for the pair, who managed a P10 for Lando and a P11 for OP. And I'd argue that this is the closest that they have been all season at this point. Because so far, all we've seen is one perform well or semi-well and one struggle. We've never seen both be on the same level in the same race. So things appeared to be leveling out for the boys in Papaya. And I never really thought Monaco would be the race that leveled things out, but here we are. Alpine. Ocon podium. Not something I had on my Monaco bingo card, that's for sure. Double points finish as well, despite their slow pit stop midway through the race, which saw Ocon rejoin in P7, and hope of a podium was seemingly lost. But hey, what do I know? He came back for a podium. Both cars had decent qualifying pace and both made it through to Q3. Gasly qualifying in P7 and Ocon in P4. Gasly failed to make up any positions. So, I mean, Ocon, he got that podium. He got his only podium of the season in Monaco. Mind-boggling. So props to him and the team for bagging a double points haul in Monte Carlo. Haas. I think it was just like everyone hit Logan Sargent on lap 1, because Hulk was given a 5-second time penalty for his lap 1 collision with Logan Sargent, which was compounded to another with a 10-second stop when he jumped the gun too early before all the tyres were secured to the car. So it was not a great week. It was not a great weekend for Hulkenberg. K-Mag was taken out front wings. K-Mag was taking out front wings left, right and centre. He claimed the rear end of Perez. He claimed the rear wing of Perez. He claimed the front wing of Perez when he rear-ended him. And he claimed the front wing of Lance Stroll when he tried to overtake him and instead collided with the wall. Qualifying. He claimed the rear end of He claimed the front wing of Perez when he rear-ended him, and he claimed the front wing of Lance Stroll when he tried to overtake him and instead collided with the wall. Qualifying was not great for the duo, who both failed to get out of Q1, qualifying 17 for Hulk and P18 for K-Mag. Hulk managed to maintain his P17 throughout the race, while K-Mag lost a position and finished in P19. So overall, not a great weekend for the American team. Williams. Look, qualifying was mixed for them this weekend. Logan failed to get out of Q1 and started the race in P16, which isn't bad for a rookie. but Alex had a better quali and managed to get through to Q2 and started the race in P13. So only 3 places separating the two. The race was slightly more difficult for the duo, because as I mentioned, it's like Logan had a magnet on him. Everyone wanted to hit him. He lost 2 places and finished the chaotic day in P18, while Alex also conceded a position and ended the day in P14. So no points for the team this weekend, unfortunately, but it is Monaco. Overtaking is virtually impossible, especially when everyone else is trying to run you off the track. So it is what it is. Alfa Romeo. Look, Valtteri Bottas managed to get out of Q1, but he failed to make any significant moves in Q2, qualifying P15. Zhou, on the other hand, failed to get out of Q1 and qualified P19. So that was a rough start to the weekend for the team. But things did improve on Sunday by some miracle, with both drivers making up some ground. Valtteri made up 4 places to finish the race just outside of the points in P11, while Zhou managed to make up 6 places to finish in P13. I'm genuinely confused as to how, considering I don't think I saw either of them during the race. But hey, good job. Virtually impossible and to make moves, and they did it. So bravo. Alpha Tauri. I mean, both drivers had a decent quali. Nick managed his highest quali position to date of P12, while Yuki once again outqualified his teammate with a P9. And despite what was looking like being a decent weekend for the team, both drivers, they did not do well. Nick didn't lose any positions, and he maintained his P12 throughout the race, beating Yuki for the first time this season, given that he unfortunately lost 6 places and ended the day in P15. So, yeah. That has been my Monaco recap, my catch-up episode. Thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and I will catch you next time. Thanks, guys.